With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey. This is a bunch of stuff, deal.
What does that mean, a bunch of stuff?
Well, it means it's simply inaccurate.
It's Irish.
It's Irish. It is. We Irish call it malarkey.
Thanks for the translation.
No,
Okay.
We Irish call it malarkey.
You know what this is? Yeah, and I reserve this word for those rare instances when it's truly deserved. This is malarkey.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Direct from the King Spring Studios in beautiful Smyrna, Georgia. This is a bunch of malarkey. Now, here's your host, the incredible Charlie McMahon.
Thank you to the legendary Scott Shannon for that introduction, and thanks to all of you for tuning into yet another episode of A Bunch of Malarkey as we enter the last week of the month of July, if you can believe that. Now, the calendar this year, if you look closely, you see January, you see February, and then it's just all one long month for the rest of the year. And I think it's going to be this way until next year, maybe even beyond that, who knows. But thanks for joining us, or for joining me. There's no us. Thank you for joining me for yet another episode as we inch closer also towards our 100th episode. That's just a few weeks away, and our 2-year anniversary of the show is just a couple of weeks away. So thanks for supporting the show. Thanks to those who have been here since the beginning. Thanks to our new listeners. Thanks to those who are patrons on patreon.com/abunchofmalarkey who make a monthly contribution to keep the show going. I really appreciate each and every one of you. So here we are. Baseball is back. Now, I have mixed feelings about baseball coming back. I love baseball. I think the first season I really got into baseball and understood it was 1980. That's 40 years ago. I was 9 years old that summer, and I love the game. Now, it's changed a lot over the years, especially the last few years, where I'm not losing interest in the game, but there's a lot wrong with the game. You know, these shifts, defensive shifts. It feels like the managers are more like friends with the players nowadays. It's all computerized strategy. There's no more like managerial instinct anymore. But I've tolerated that over the last few years. Now they're starting up baseball they're going to have a 60-game season this year. Baseball is normally 162 games. So basically a third of the season. No fans, like pumped in fake crowd noise, like more teams making the playoffs. Now, if you go to extra innings, there's a runner automatically on second. I don't like this. This is like beer softball league. It's fugazi. It's fake. The season's fake. Now, you're risking the players with the travel through airports and, you know, being amongst each other. I think Major League Baseball should have waited until next year. But we'll get more into sports, which is kind of our topic later on. The funny side of sports, though, not sports itself for you non-sports fans, so don't go shutting off this episode. So there's more craziness out and about in public. Talk about public health advice not passing the smell test. A woman refused to wear a mask at a Panera Bread in California, claiming they're useless to stop the spread of COVID-19 since people can still smell farts through pants. That's her logic. The video footage was taken Monday at a Panera Bread in Chico, California, and it shows a white woman, now dubbed Panera Karen. Wouldn't Panera Patty be more appropriate? Everybody's a Karen nowadays. Now, she was trying to film while hiding her face as a man standing behind her chides her for not wearing a mask, which she's holding in the same hand. Wow, you sure are brave, the man, identified as William C., tells the woman. You're sure a tough one, aren't you? C. then asked a Panera employee to get this lady out of here, prompting the worker to say that she has just called security. So you're not going to serve me because I'm not wearing a mask? Panera Karen says. No, they're not going to serve you because you're not wearing a mask. That's exactly right, C replies, undaunted. Panera Karen continues to hold up her cell phone during the confrontation as several other customers are also inside the location. The video shows. Just put on a mask. Don't be a moron, C says. You selfish piece of shit. Get out of here. You're so fucking selfish. That leads the maskless woman to turn around and ask C to stop it before she intentionally blows air in his direction. C, who was with a friend at the time, then curses out the woman, telling her to grow the fuck up as she walks away before she stops briefly to provide her apparent reasoning for not donning her mask. You think that a mask is going to protect you? Panera Karen said. You fart out your ass. You could smell it out of your ass. You think that mask is going to protect you? The woman then walks out of the store as C again tells her to grow up. Social media sleuths, meanwhile, were trying to identify the woman early Wednesday after some Twitter users asked others to retweet her image until her identity is revealed. Now, you notice everybody's a scientist now ever since this pandemic one. Now, this woman's logic for not wearing a mask is that you could smell a fart through your pants. It's just everybody's a big know-it-all now. Everybody's a scientist, all these Facebook social media scientists. Now, in Kentucky, a Kentucky couple says they've been placed under house arrest for refusing to sign self-quarantine documents. You heard that right. It all started when Elizabeth Linscott planned to visit her parents and decided to get tested for COVID-19 before traveling. Pretty responsible. After testing positive on July 11th, Elizabeth was contacted by Kentucky's Hardin County Health Department. They requested she sign documents that required daily check-ins and would limit her from traveling anywhere, including health facilities, unless she called the health department first. After receiving the documents in an email, Elizabeth refused to sign them. She said, I just didn't agree with the wording because I know for a fact that if I had signed it and I had an emergency, it would have been held against me by not calling. I have no problem self-quarantining, but if I have to leave my house to get a necessity for an emergency, I'm going to do that without your prior consent, she said. Elizabeth received a call from the Hardin County Health Department asking why she decided not to sign the documents. Following a discussion with a staffer, Elizabeth hung up the phone in frustration. She then received a text informing her that because she had refused to sign, law enforcement would get involved. The couple didn't hear anything for a few days until Thursday. You know what's going to happen here, don't you? The old knock on the door. Around 5 p.m., law enforcement knocked on their door, Linscott's door. My husband answered the door, and he was like, what is this about? They said, we have 3 court orders for you, your wife, and your daughter that state you guys refused quarantine, so now you have to wear these ankle monitors. We were like, what's going to happen if we refuse? And they said it's going to get escalated higher and higher. The husband and wife were told that if they traveled more than 200 feet from the home, the county would be alerted, and if they refused to cooperate, the sheriff's department would get involved. The Hardin County Sheriff's Office said that the notices delivered by the Hardin County Sheriff's Office on July 16th are confidential. Therefore, the Sheriff's Department said they would not be making any further comment and cannot release documents or additional information unless directed by a court. The Linscotts are not the only ones who have had a run-in with the law over quarantine-related issues. On March 30th, Kentucky Circuit judges ordered at least 4 COVID-19 patients to wear ankle monitors for allegedly breaking self-isolation orders. I think we had one of those stories on the podcast. So maybe a little tough by the Kentucky Health Department, but maybe that's what we need right now, just to get people's ass in line. You know, just sign the fucking document saying, you know, quarantine for 2 weeks, it's over. It's over. You had the virus, you self-quarantined, you signed the paper, it's over. But this woman had to make a deal out of it. Now it's escalated, sheriffs are involved. I mean, come on, people. I don't understand why people are so adamant against just doing the right thing, making a small sacrifice. But we've been over this week after week after week. All right, so maybe you just want to get out on a nature hike, right? Get away from people. Don't have to worry about catching corona. Well, a visitor to a park in Mexico captured a video of a black bear approaching a young woman and sniffing her hair as she snapped a selfie with the wild animal. That's right. The video, which was recorded at Chippewa Ecological Park in San Pedro Garcia, shows the bear approach a trio of women paying special attention to one of the park visitors. The bear stands on its hind legs and appears to sniff the woman's hair as she snaps the selfie with the animal. What shampoo was that back in the 70s? Those commercials. Gee, your hair smells terrific. Remember that? The bear then begins to walk away before turning back and making a beeline for the same woman. This time he tries to bite her, then swings his paws at her before casually walking away. The woman's actions are not something experts encourage you to do if you encounter a bear in the wild. Taking a selfie is probably not the best idea. In fact, it's best for you to yell loudly and make as much noise as possible to hopefully scare the bear from the area and preserve its natural fear of humans. The park said in a statement on its website that the bear was displaying an abnormal behavior caused by human beings. Park officials said plans are being put into place to capture the bear due to its lack of fear of humans. The statement said the park will implement strict measures to prevent future potentially dangerous interactions between people and bears. So a bear story. You think you want to go on a hike? There's no escaping it. I always say it at the end of the show. It's a shit show out there. You can't escape anything. Now, speaking of bears, all right, you maybe expect to come into contact with one if you're on a hike in an area where maybe bears are known to roam. It's their habitat after all. How about having a bear in your kitchen? Well, a Colorado man, he knew something was wrong when he heard a commotion early last Friday morning in the Aspen house where he's staying with his kids. He said he laid in bed thinking, I really hope that isn't a bear. Dave Chernosk said, I figured it probably was, but I was sure hoping for something else once I got into the kitchen. He said the large black bear, estimated at about 400 pounds, was standing at the refrigerator when he walked into the room. The animal had opened drawers and cabinets and thrown stuff around. He was able to keep the kitchen island between them and then tried to coax the bear into the garage to get it outside. The plan seemed to work, but Chernosky said the bear got spooked when he hit the garage door opener and it came back in the house. Chernosky went to make sure that it didn't wander down the stairs where his 12-year-old twins were sleeping. That's when he encountered the bear face to face. We looked at each other, and he just smacked me on the side of the head and spun me around and got me again on the back. I literally heard it crack on my head. A bear paw is not soft and cushy. It's good to know. He was bleeding heavily from cuts to his forehead and neck, but was able to scramble away and scream at the bear to leave. I just knew if he didn't leave, I was in big trouble. But fortunately, he was done at that point and just left. Officials with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife were able to track down the bear and euthanize it. What a fucking shame. They'll test samples from the bear and the house to make sure they got the right animal. You're going to do that after? Based on the direct and clear trail that tracking dogs quickly followed, along with the physical description of the bear, we're certain that we got the offending animal. We never like to have to put an animal down, but the protection of the public is paramount once a bear begins entering homes and responding aggressively towards people. Officials said it matched the description of the bear that had been seen in the neighborhood for several days. It may have been the same bear that's been reported raiding trash cans in the area and evading capture for the past couple of years. It's unclear how the bear got in the house, but the Colorado Parks and Wildlife spokesman Randy Hampton said the front door had a lever handle, which are easier for bears to open. It was the first bear attack in Aspen this year. 3 bear attacks in the area in 2019 all occurred outdoors. Chernosky says he feels lucky as he recovers from his wounds, adding that doctors told him the bear's claws just missed his eye and carotid artery. So, a bear in the kitchen in Colorado. It's a shame they had to euthanize the bear. It's in its own habitat. What do you think it's going to do? And they're saying now, experts, I read this story the other day, that since restaurants aren't open or they're just doing takeout, there's no garbage in the dumpsters, and rats and all kinds of different animals and rodents that normally eat out of these dumpsters have no food source, so they're going into people's backyards and homes and different stuff like that. Now, I don't know if that's the case in this story, but I read that that's happening in suburban and metropolitan areas, especially with rats. They're normally eating, out of these dumpsters, and there's no food in there because the restaurants aren't open. So you say to yourself, okay, I'm not safe on land. Let me get on a boat. Let's do some fishing. Well, there's a story right out of Jaws that happened in Australia where a shark plucked a 10-year-old boy right from a fishing boat, right off the coast of Australia. Authorities say the boy was on a fishing trip off Stanley on Tasmania's northwest coast with his father and 2 other men when the shark came up and pulled the boy from the boat. The boy's father jumped into the water, at which point the shark swam off. The boy, who was wearing a flotation device, suffered cuts to his arm, chest, and head. He was taken to a hospital and is in stable condition. It's the latest attack in Australia, where there have been 5 fatal incidents already this year. The country typically averages about 3 fatal shark attacks a year. The last time there were 5 deaths from shark attacks was in 2014. On Tuesday, Anika Craney, 29 years old, was bitten by a shark while swimming. A 15-year-old surfer died Saturday after a shark caused severe injuries to his legs. So these sharks, they're out there looking for meat out off the coast of Australia. So you have to be careful. So you can't stay on land. You can't go on a boat. Maybe you'll get some fast food. Maybe some chicken nuggets. Well, you may want to think twice about going to KFC. Listen to this story. KFC, well, they're going to test chicken nuggets made with a 3D printer. This is a true story. It's going to happen in Moscow, Russia this fall. The chain announced this in a press release. The chicken chain has partnered with 3D bioprinting solutions to create a chicken nugget made in a lab with chicken and plant cells using bioprinting. Bioprinting, which uses 3D printing techniques to combine biological material, is used in medicine to create tissue and even organs. The 3D printed chicken nuggets will closely mimic the taste and appearance of their KFC original chicken nuggets, according to the press release. KFC, well, they expect the production of 3D printed nuggets to be more environmentally friendly than the production process of its traditional chicken nuggets. The fall release will mark the first debut of lab-grown chicken nuggets at a global fast food chain. Not sure how I feel about this. Crafted meat products are the next step in the development of our Restaurant of the Future concept. Our experiment in testing 3D bioprinting technology to create chicken products can also help address several looming global problems. We are glad to contribute to its development, and we are working to make it available to thousands of people in Russia and, if possible, around the world, the CEO of KFC Russia and Commonwealth Independent States said in the press release. Yusef Nusani, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, he's the co-founder and managing director at 3D Bioprinting Solutions, says he hopes the KFC partnership would help accelerate the rise of cell-based meats and make them more widely available. Although it's not currently widely used in food, the lab-grown meat is heavily researched. It's a heavily researched product that many investors hope will be on the market soon. Memphis Meats, a cell-based meat startup, raised $161 million in its latest funding round, and major investors include CPT Capital, a venture fund that has also backed Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat. KFC also announced it would sell Beyond Fried Chicken at over 50 California restaurants for a limited time after successful tests in Nashville, Atlanta, and Charlotte. Now, I'm all for meatless products like plant-based burgers and all that Beyond Meat. I'm not sure how I feel about this 3D printed chicken. Okay, you're going to save the lives of chicken. It's more environmentally friendly, but would you eat it? I don't think I would. Now, speaking of KFC, a man has been given a place in the KFC Superfan Hall of Fame after chowing down in KFC restaurants in 50 different cities in more than 40 different countries. 50 different cities, 40 different countries, this guy's eating KFC. Kamlesh Mistry, M-I-S-T-R-Y, says he had his first taste of KFC at age 12 while he was in Toronto, Canada, with his great-grandma. And that kick-started a lifelong love of the original recipe fried chicken. I wonder if he'll eat the 3D printed chicken. The 34-year-old travels several times a year and estimates he spent about $8,800 on KFC, even popping into a KFC while on his honeymoon in Hawaii. Honey, I love that negligee. You look great, but I got to hit some KFC. Now, after spotting a competition to find KFC's biggest fan, Camlish decided to give it a go. He's from Watford, London, and he said, KFC alongside my wife and son is my world. So he ranks KFC right up there with his wife and his son. Whenever big happy occasions happen in my life, KFC is never far away. Camlish says he can't even remember all the cities he's eaten KFC in, but has counted around 50 in more than 40 different countries. He explained, when I left university, all my money went on traveling and I tried to go to new places. Whenever I used to see a KFC in any other country, I'd visit and I'd always take a picture outside and try whatever they had. He said the most unusual place he ever had KFC was in Reykjavik, Iceland, and one of his friends ended up working there. We went to visit him and did all the sights. We went for a drink in the center and came across a KFC, which I didn't even know existed in Iceland. The other one was when my wife and I went on a honeymoon to Las Vegas, San Francisco, and Hawaii. When we were in Hawaii, we saw a KFC and they had job applications, so I grabbed one and took a photo to joke with my family that I was having a career change. So this guy's been all over the world eating KFC, and he's become a super fan. We had a woman, a self-proclaimed scientist who says if you can fart through your jeans and smell it, masks don't work. We had a couple in Kentucky quarantined for not signing quarantine papers. We had a woman taking a selfie with a bear, a man attacked by a bear in his kitchen, a shark plucking a kid from a boat, 3D printed chicken nuggets, and a KFC super fan. So we have it all. We have it all here at A Bunch of Malarkey. So that'll transition into our favorite segment.
A Bunch of Malarkey.
Mutant of the Week.
Now here's Charlie.
So last week's Mutant of the Week race was very lopsided. We have the driveway defender, the guy who pulled a gun on a couple who got lost and turned around in his driveway, up against one Uber annoyance, the woman who called 911 4 or 5 times for a ride to another city. Well, it was a landslide in a 73 to 27% victory. The driveway defender is our Mutant of the Week. So thank you all for voting. For our new listeners, where do you vote for the Mutant of the Week? You go to our Facebook page, A Bunch of Malarkey. Poll goes up on Monday, ends on Friday, 5 full days to vote. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers all about A Bunch of Malarkey and our Mutant of the Week poll. Here is our first nominee, who's going to try to take down the driveway defender. A California Verizon store mask-wearing policy really pissed one customer off, so she dropped her pants and urinated on the floor, according to a report. A police dispatch operator in Roseville told officers that 3 people are refusing to leave, not wearing a mask. They've asked several times, and she refuses. They're calling back and advising that the female is pulling down her pants and is now urinating inside the business. The operator adds a few minutes later. The responding officers collared the woman and found several items that had been stolen from a nearby Dick's Sporting Goods store in her car, according to the outlet. Now, let me interject. I always say this. If you've already gotten away with something like stealing, why do you draw attention to yourself? Because now you're not only going to draw attention to yourself for the urination, but they're going to find the stolen shit that you got away with. So I never understood that. That's totally inappropriate. We're not animals, resident Michelle Davidson said about the woman's vile act in the store. I'm very disappointed that we as a society choose to have this unity and let the virus divide us. She added about those who reject calls to wear masks during the pandemic. Another resident, Kelly Berger, said, I don't really have much to say except that's probably not the right way to react. Simply wear the mask or leave. Representative from Verizon, Heidi Flato, told the press that the company is requiring all customers to wear masks in their stores. She added that the incident wasn't just about the mask policy, but wouldn't comment further. So let's call this lady the 5P network. Forget the 5G network. She is the 5P network out of California, the woman who pissed on a Verizon store floor because she was told she had to wear a mask. Our second mutant nominee, we have to go down to Texas, where a Texas donut shop said one of its customers was caught on camera throwing the donuts at an employee who asked her to wear a face mask inside the store. So we have two face mask pain in the asses this week who don't want to wear the mask. One pissed, now this one's throwing donuts. The incident occurred on Sunday at the Dapper Donut Shop in El Paso. A man and woman were waiting to receive their food when Supervisor Lauren Keener asked them to wear their masks, which are required inside the business in the city. The request angered the woman, who threw the box of donuts at Keener and asked for their money back. When the managers refused, the man stole a mug from the store without paying for it, and then they left. Surveillance video showed the woman throwing the box of donuts over the counter and the man leaving the shop with the stolen mug. There are always those people that like to get confrontational with you, even if it's just verbally, and they'll say, fine, I'll just leave home without donuts today, Keener said. And I'll say, that's fine, I'm just trying to keep my employees and customers safe. Store employees reported the incident to El Paso police and security officials in their building. No further information was immediately available. So we'll call this woman the pastry pitcher. So we have the 5P network against the pastry pitcher. Two buffoons that refused to wear a mask and acted out in public. You know, just like the race a couple of weeks ago with the safari slapper, the guy slapping the zebra and the woman hitting the horse with the shovel. You got two people in similar situations, one throwing donuts, the other one pissing on the floor, all because they don't want to wear masks. So poll goes up on Monday, ends on Friday. Make your voices heard over at A Bunch of Malarkey on Facebook. So I said at the top of the show that baseball was starting up again. But baseball's not allowing any fans in the stands, which I agree with. NFL is. They're having reduced capacity. And I believe they stated the other day that everybody needed to wear a mask. That's going to go over well. You can't get someone to wear a mask in Panera, but they're going to wear one in a football arena. And you're going to control 10,000 people. Whole nother story for another day. But sports is starting back up again. Now, I thought I would miss baseball a lot more than I did. I learned to live without it. I've been so much more productive without it. Getting stuff done, working long days for my radio station, this podcast, and other projects I have going on. So I miss it to a degree, but I didn't miss it as much as I thought I would. And again, it's a lot to do with the game changing over the years, like I said at the top of the show. A lot of different things about baseball. But not having fans in the stands made me think we're not going to have to deal with a lot of the stuff that you not only see on TV, because you see rowdy fans and people doing stupid things all the time, but it made me think of things that fans do, sports fans do, the things they do that annoy me, and most people. Now, the average fan, I think I was never a fanatic. That's where the word fan comes, fanatic. I've always loved baseball, but I don't think I ever got to a point where I was crazed and totally nuts. Maybe my friends who listen can correct that, but I don't remember a time where I live and die by anything. I would get upset when I was younger when the Yankees would lose. I was a kid. As an adult, you root for a team, you stay up, you follow them all year, and you get disappointed when they don't win at all. But you move on. But there are some adults that still act like children and misbehave and do things that annoy the rest of us. So today's show is all about things that sports fans do that annoy me and most people. Now, how many times have you seen a sports fan do something and you just wanted to tell them how ridiculous and annoying they were being? Now, it's our responsibility as true sports fans to protect all of the true sports fans from the ones who have no place in our arenas, our ballparks, and our stadiums. Now, I'm going to start. I might piss off a lot of Atlanta people. Now, I live in Atlanta. I'm a New Yorker living here in Atlanta for the last 9 years. We just had our 9-year anniversary. The tomahawk chop kind of bothers me. The tomahawk chop is the Atlanta Braves' borderline offensive organized chant where they use their arms or styrofoam tomahawks if you want to buy one for probably $25, just like the Native Americans used to do for survival. They do it all game, and nobody has ever had the common sense to say, hey, maybe this is just a little too much. In their defense, the team puts the music on. So if you're not doing it, you're just not fitting in. So you're almost forced to do this. I think it's annoying. I think we should get rid of it. The tomahawk chop needs to go. You know what else annoys me about sports fans? People who move to the good section of the stadium when they paid for cheap seats. Now, I can't sit here and say I've never done it when I was younger. And you can't blame people for trying to move up or game the system, into the expensive seats, because it's simply a better game watching experience. But anytime you've paid money to stay away from these idiots, knows that when the guy sits down next to you, everyone around gets really annoyed. He's usually a pretty ballsy guy based on his ability to get past security, and it's usually pretty awkward, and they almost always get caught eventually. The ushers always check the ticket later on, but those people who try to game the system kind of annoy me. I know seats are expensive and you want to get the best experience possible, but those people annoy me. Now, I hate thunder sticks. You know what those are. They're those blow-up things that people bang together to make noise. I think the California Angels or Anaheim Angels started this back in 2002. It's the first time I remember seeing a thunder stick. Okay, they're handed out or you buy them. Most of the time they hand it out. You go with the crowd, you do it. But we should all be in favor of using loud noises during free throws, to distract the other team, or maybe during a timeout or a pregame to pump up the fans. But banging thunder sticks together with 10 minutes left in the second quarter, just unnecessary. There's no need for an excessive amount of noise in people's ears when nothing's going on. Time and a place for the thunder stick. Now, I love the 80s. I started a radio station all about 80s music. But people who start the wave annoy me. Now, thank you for trying to force me into a late 80s fad that is both distracting and obnoxious. There's a reason, like the mullet, it went out of style. Stop trying to start the wave and make the rest of us join in. If I want to reminisce about the 80s, I'll put on Charlie's 80s Attic, my radio station, for all those keeping score at home. Now, what about the guy, you're watching the game, who says, I could have been a pro athlete if I had just worked a little harder at it. He's 5'5", he's an accountant, and he's telling his lawyer friend that he could have been an athlete if he worked just a little harder. Yeah, you could have if you spent 10,000 hours on it, grew about 7 inches, and accumulated any hand-eye coordination. We all like to think we could have been the stars we idolize, but in reality, most of us were just born to be fans. It's that old expression, if I would have practiced more, I could have been. If my aunt had a dick, she'd be my uncle. Would have, could have, should have, you know what I mean? One of my biggest pet peeves now, and I think I used to do it when I was younger, and I caught myself doing it, and I changed. Fans that say we when they refer to the team they follow or love. Like they're on it. Yeah, we're going to go on a long road trip. It'll be hard, but I think we can handle it. When did the team pronounce you as the spokesperson? When are you on the roster? I never got the memo that you joined the team in the offseason. It's just an annoying habit that most sports fans go through at one point or another. But to the average person, it makes someone sound a little crazy. And I still see it, 50-year-old men saying we. Yeah, I probably stopped that 15, 20 years ago. But I'm embarrassed that I even did it. What about the sports fan, the guy who takes the company softball league or game a little bit too seriously? Like company softball leagues, maybe they're an important part of the corporate structure and a good way to get in with your bosses and get to know your coworkers. It could get a little competitive at times, but there's always that guy who really isn't that good and gets overly emotional when he makes a mistake because he wishes he was a great athlete, or the guy laying out, diving. The guy's got a family, 3 kids at home and a wife, and he's willing to put his entire career on the line and injure himself beyond recognition to make a catch. I never understood that. 50-year-old guy diving at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, risking his income, risking his livelihood for a company softball game. Never understood it. What about these D and fence sign guys? You've seen them. If you hold up the letter D in a picture of a fence, it means defense, right? Now, of course, you know that what it means. So why do people do it? Is it for the guys that were not sure how to spell the word, so they just decided to use pictures? It's just annoying. It's distracting, and it's unnecessary. It's an unnecessary gimmick. Please stop with the D in the fence. It's been done to death. What about the fans who boo the fan selected from the audience who's competing in like a shooting contest or a basketball shooting contest, a free throw contest, or any competition out on the field, the ice, the court? The commercial break shooting competition brings some interesting characters onto the court. Let's talk basketball. They're usually out of shape. They're non-athletic. And they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. We know that. I mean, they're not going to bring top-notch shooters out there, or else they'll have to actually give away those flights to Tokyo and those brand-new cars. But the worst thing is when fans boo other fans because they think they can do better. You should be cheering the guy on. You want the guy to get the fucking car. Why are you rooting for the company? The corporate slobs. I never understood that. Fans booing other fans out there trying to do just trying to win something. I don't get it. It's because they're jealous that they're not out there. What about the guy who tries to anticipate the play? This is when you're watching sports with somebody. The try to anticipate a play before it happens guy. We all know that guy. You'll sit and watch a game with him, a baseball game, say, and he'll call what the next pitch is going to be. It's going to be a fastball because he, quote unquote, knows the signs. I can understand that someone has a general knowledge of how a catcher calls a game, especially if you've been watching baseball a long time. But I think it's a bit more sophisticated than that. Even if the guy's right and it's a fastball, who wants to know what's coming next anyway? Let me watch it and I will find out in about 5 seconds. I don't need to know your analysis of the game. Now, what about the guy who makes the sign for the TV network that the game is on? Okay, you're trying to get a little recognition when you're at the game, maybe get on TV, but you bring a sign that spells out the network that the game is on. It's annoying. We get it. The game is on ABC. So making an acronym for Always Beat Cleveland doesn't make you that much more of a sports fan. You're annoying. What about the refuse to sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game guy? That's one of the big traditions of going to the baseball game. You sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Everybody gets up, even if you hum. Now, I know singing is not for everyone. I'm not a great singer. But when you go to a ball game, let loose a little and enjoy one of the best traditions in all of sports. There are people who sit there and pretend like it's not even happening. It's time to get off your high horse because we know you know the words. What about these dudes that take pictures or selfies with mascots? Despite the fact that there's technically a human underneath that suit, we should not treat mascots as people. They're annoying. They don't make you enjoy the game anymore. They're constantly getting in the way. So when I see someone go and take a picture with one because his or her buddy dared him, I want to cringe. It's entertaining for about a second until they realize they have a picture with a giant bear. Great job. Great job. We already know what a bear can do. But you know what really annoys me? Fans that show up at stadiums wearing shirts or hats or jerseys of random teams that aren't even playing in the game. You're at a Yankees-Red Sox game at Yankee Stadium and you see a guy wearing a Padres t-shirt. Why? Because you found it at a vintage, trendy store? I don't like you. No Yankee fan should be wearing another team's apparel. And then don't get mad when we question your fandom and you say the shirt looked cool. It's not an explanation. It's an excuse. I'd rather you have a Red Sox hat on at Yankee Stadium. At least it's related to what's happening. Now, Yankee fans are known for this, but it annoys me. Fans who speak exclusively about the glory days of their team and ignore the present. The Yankees haven't won a championship in 11 years, but they'll tell you they won 27 rings. Who gives a shit about 1927? If your team won the title 6 years ago, it doesn't mean you can excuse every dumb move they are making today or how they're playing yesterday. There is a grace period, but come on, your team was good years ago, so stop talking about the glory days. What is the grace period? I'm going to say 5 years. If If your team hasn't won in 5 years, you shouldn't be talking about it. I like the Islanders hockey team. They won 4 Stanley Cups in a row, 1980 through 84. They haven't won since. But you got Islander fans who'll bring up those 4 cups and yell dynasty. That was 40 years ago, bud. Well, you know, even if they won 15 years ago, okay. 40 years ago. What about these guys? Now, we probably won't have to deal much with this, thank God, who go behind the sports announcers and reporters and make stupid faces. This is a branch off of waving to the camera. After the game or during timeouts, the cameras will sometimes do a close-up on the play-by-play or color commentator or a reporter out in the stands. They show a snippet of the crowd behind them. Instead of just sitting quietly or acting normally, you got these yahoos that insist on making faces, waving uncontrollably. It's like a social experiment. As soon as that camera light goes on, they become mutants. What about the guy who talks about the 9th round draft pick that his football team just got? Just because you may have heard it on a sports talk radio show, and they tell you that you got a good value because that guy should have went in the 5th round, doesn't mean I give a shit about your late round NFL draft picks. The 23rd ranked tight end is not exciting. It's not exciting to talk about. We'll know soon enough if he's any good in the pros, let alone whether he'll make the team or not. I know you're committed to your team, but get off your couch and do something productive with your life instead of worrying about a 23rd round draft pick. Do us all a favor. What about the guy who talks about his fantasy teams all the time? Now, I was in fantasy baseball and football 20 years ago. It was fun. But how often do you walk in on a conversation, 2 guys talking about trading players and picking up free agents, only 5 minutes later to be surprised that they're not even talking about real life? They're talking about their fantasy team. It's depressing. Nobody wants to hear about your 1-point loss to your sister who you let in the league because you didn't have enough guys. Or these guys that root for fantasy players on the opposite team who's playing your team because you want the points. I've seen that at Yankee Stadium. Guy in full Yankee jersey rooting for a guy that hit a grand slam off the Yankees because he has him on his fantasy team. What are you, fucking crazy? What about the T-shirt toss guy? You know, like during the 7th inning stretch or between periods at a hockey game or between quarters at a basketball game. You have the girls that come out and they shoot those T-shirts into the crowd and everybody tries to grab them. Now, you came for the baseball game or the basketball game, but you stayed for the T-shirt toss. You have $100 seats, but what really gets you off your feet is the 50-cent promotional T-shirt that's littered with about 20 local restaurants' names and car dealerships on the back of it. Your team just hit 10 straight 3-pointers. You haven't moved a muscle. You haven't gotten up out of your seat. But when the mascot and the cheerleaders come out with the T-shirt cannon, you're standing on your seat. You know, everyone gets up for this one. Not everybody, but most people get up for this one. And you got to see the look on these people's faces who don't get the T-shirt. It's like their team lost the actual game. It's a 50-cent T-shirt. I used to say that when I was a kid at Yankee Stadium. You would see the upper decks at Yankee Stadium back in the 80s, okay? Nobody wanted to go to Yankee Stadium because the neighborhood was so crime-infested. Yeah, they even talked about moving the Yankees out of the Bronx to New Jersey. Any given night, just the inner part of the stadium from the home plate to the third and first base was filled. The rest of the stadium empty. There'd be like 10 stragglers out in the bleachers. When a guy would hit a home run, you would see a race. Guys in $200 suits ripping it, diving off of seats to get a 50-cent baseball. I never understood it. Well, then you got the heckle the bad bullpen pitchers and bullpen catcher guy. You're sitting out in the bleachers. You're overlooking the bullpen. You have the pitchers that never come into the game unless it's a blowout either way for some work. So you have that guy out there who's had a little too much to drink. He's in the bleachers. He always seems to find the mop-up guy in the bullpen or the bullpen catcher to befriend. At the end of the day, the guy's, even if he's bad, he's still on a major league team. He's making more money than you, but you have to make fun of him. Everything from his gut to the fact he'll never get in the game. It's the highlight of the game and probably the highlight of the week for these hecklers. What about the steal the ball from the little kid guy? Everyone wants a foul ball, but don't be the guy that steals one from a toddler. The game should be about the kids. If you're a 20, 30, 40, 50 something, realize that It means more for that kid to get the ball than for you to show it off to your buddies and forget about it at the stadium. Let the kid have the fucking ball. I don't even like kids, and I would hand the ball to the kid. What about the yell at the TV guy? Forget going to the stadium. Who wants to watch a game with a guy or girl, because I'm stereotyping. Women love sports too, and they're fanatical just as much as men are, so I apologize if I keep saying guy. It could be a guy, a girl, a woman, man. Who wants to watch a game with a person who yells at the players on a TV like the players hear them? Everyone's watching the same game, yet this one person feels the need to talk to the players after he misses a free throw or strikes out. It's something fans have not been able to figure out yet. There's no microphone in their TVs that go to the players. Then you have the Jumbotron scoreboard freakout person. You know, people sit generally reserved in their seats during a game, but when that cameraman comes around, it's as if he's offered a cash prize to the person who does the dumbest thing on camera. Best case scenario, you make it to the Jumbotron or television for 2 seconds. Worst case scenario, you make it on the Jumbotron or television for 5 seconds, and now everyone around you knows how crazy and stupid you really are. What about booing your own team because they didn't hit a certain threshold so you can't get free food? This is like a new thing in sports the last few years. If the Yankees score more than 7 runs tonight, show your ticket stub at Papa John's and get a free one-topping pizza or 50-cent tacos, okay? You might say, how is it possible that people would boo their own team for winning a game? Well, that's if Taco Bell is giving out free tacos or burritos if the team wins and scores 100 points, and your team holds the ball with 99 points, up 15. The people get restless. It's a juvenile fan action that should be met with laughter from the players. It's no longer good enough to win. We must further embarrass the other team so everyone gets a 50-cent taco the next day at Taco Bell. What about these yahoos that get in fights at games? Nothing says man like getting liquored up and fighting a guy at the game who doesn't agree with you that the team should have tried the suicide squeeze with 2 outs and a runner on third. That's manhood. Getting drunk at the baseball game, $60. Spending the night at Yankee Stadium's jail, well, that's priceless. I like these guys, or girls, or women, or men, or people that go for it on 4th down in the first quarter person. It's not Madden. It's not a video game. You don't go for it on 4th down in the first quarter. There are actual decisions to be made that are not determined by your whimsical desires. I used whimsical twice in 2 weeks. Come on. There are decisions that are to be made on the field that aren't determined by your desires. To see your team attempt a 4th and 1 quarterback sneak, which always works in a video game, by the way. Fans cannot generally see the long term, and that field position is a huge part of a football game. It's an uneducated thought that proves to everyone watching that this guy should never, ever coach football. Then you got the running out on the field guy. I'm going to say guy because I've never seen a woman run out on the field. This is the ultimate annoying, egotistical action that a fan can do. Back in the day, they used to show the people running on the field. It was maybe slightly entertaining, but now all they do is go up to the analyst while they waste time to get you off the field. They never show you. All you're going to do is get a swift tackle or a taser to the back. Don't run onto the field. You're wasting everybody's time. And last but not least, bandwagon fans and those who teach their kids to be bandwagon fans. You know how many Facebook posts I saw 2 years ago with kids in Golden State Warriors jerseys? Golden State Warriors. You live in New York. Lakers, garb in Texas. Come on. Now, I could see some people grew up to be Cowboys fans that live around the country. I get it. It happens. But you could tell whoever wore a Golden State Warriors jersey before a couple of years ago. Come on. Pick a team. It's a sin. It's the ultimate sports sin, being a bandwagon fan. How can the sports world tolerate someone who doesn't have a team? But only a philosophy. Follow the team that's in the lead. It's the most annoying type of fan. You know, the guy who likes the Lakers all of a sudden because they have LeBron. Come on. That is the most annoying. So I'm going to end with that one. So let me know what things sports fans do that annoy you the most. Let me even know if you're a sports fan. Even though it was sports related, it wasn't a sports show. So hopefully you can relate to some of these. Even if you're not a sports fan, you could see maybe your significant other or your friends do these kind of things. So now you can call them out on it. Say, I heard that on A Bunch of Malarkey. You're a real mutant for doing that. So, folks, where are we found? We are on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Radio Public, Radio.com, Stitcher, Castbox, YouTube, Deezer, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Overcast, or on your Amazon Echo device. Just say, Alexa, play the podcast, A Bunch of Malarkey. How do you get in touch with us? A Bunch of Malarkey Pod Show at gmail.com. We are on Twitter at Malarkey Pod Show. We are on Instagram, A Bunch of Malarkey Podcast. Of course, we are on Facebook, A Bunch of Malarkey. That's where you vote for the Mutant of the Week. So don't forget, this week we have the 5P Network against the Pastry Pitcher. Now, do you want to become a patron of the show? Come on, a couple of bucks a month. $1 a month, $2 a month. Go to patreon.com/abunchofmalarkey and consider becoming a patron or sponsor of the show. My book, A Whole Lot of Shenanigans, is still available on Amazon. Just put A Whole Lot of Shenanigans and my name, Charlie, into the search bar. It'll come up. It's available on paperback or on Kindle if you like to read your books online. Definitely good for some laughs. If you can't get enough of my voice, you can find me all week long on a radio station, Charlie's 80s Attic. It's a great 80s radio station. It's found on the iHeartRadio and on the TuneIn Radio app. So I hope you will check me out there. Great selection of music. And I don't just announce music. I tell you all about the songs I play, where they peaked on the charts, what album they're from, a little trivia about each song I play. So you definitely want to head over there and check that out. So, folks, if you're the type of guy or girl that sits in front of the TV and yells at your team, or the type that wants to do anything crazy to get on the Jumbotron, or maybe even the type that boos your own team because you didn't get a 50-cent taco the next day, you still have to beware, because it's a shit show out there. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of A Bunch of Malarkey. I hope you all have a great and safe week. I will catch you next week. Take care, everybody.